Going live. It says this hangout is up on the air. Good morning, everybody. Len Mooney here with Lunch with Len, and it is January 26th. Not many shopping days left till Christmas. Be careful. Hey, we have a really special audience today, a really special show today, and a special audience too. And I'm glad to see all you folks showing up today. We have a guest on that is just absolutely amazing. He blows me away with what he's done, and I think some of you know who he is, and some of you don't. And we have Mycle Brandy on, and also got Bob Miller with me. And the reason I have Bob Miller with me is Bob's been a friend of Mycle's for a long time, and they know each other through the stroke support community. And I'm just going to give the shortest little, background here, and that is Mycle is. I hope I get it right, Mycle, and you can correct any of the errors. Mycle is a 4-time stroke survivor. I can't even imagine that, let alone the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is that at some point in the past, Mycle decided, and I'll let him tell the whole story, but he decided that he would do something to support the stroke community, and he decided to walk across America from sea to shining sea. And not only has he done that once, done it 3 times, and he's getting ready to do it a 4th time. And what we want to do is shake his hand, hear his story, congratulate him, stand in awe of this effort, and see what we can support this effort. So with that little bit of an intro, I'm going to just turn it on over to, actually, I'm going to turn it over to Bob and Mycle. Bob, again, you've been a friend of Mycle's for a long time. And Mycle, welcome aboard, buddy. Really glad to have you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me on the show, Len. I appreciate it a lot.
Trust me, it is my pleasure indeed. So, Mycle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? We've got some people here that haven't heard it.
Well, I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. In 1988, I fell at work. A couple of weeks later, I lost the hearing in my right ear, and discovered shortly after that I'd had a stroke. After that, I had 3 more strokes. Before my 3rd stroke, I actually went to law school and graduated from law school, got my JD, and then I had my 3rd stroke in '97, and in 2002 I had my 4th stroke, and when I had my 4th stroke, I figured I'd better change my life a little bit, so I quit smoking, and I quit drinking, and I started working out at the gym, and in 2004, I got Christmas of 2004, I got notice from the American Stroke Association inviting me to participate in marathons. And so Louise, who's my wife, and we went down for an information session, and I told the guys that I didn't think I could do a marathon, but I would try to do a half marathon. And the guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mycle, but there's no half marathon in the San Diego Marathon. It's only a full." He says, "But don't worry. When you get tired, we'll come and take you off." And I said, "Yeah, that's a clincher there, dude. It'll take more than you to take me off that, that marathon trail." So I ended up doing that first marathon in 2005 with my sweet, wonderful wife in June, and then I've done 8 more or 9 more since then. I made a decision after doing all the marathons that I wanted to do something a little bit different, because in doing the marathons, I was reaching a lot of people with stroke awareness and talking to them about, getting off the couch, but it was just a small group of people that were stroke marathon related or marathon related, which means it was a lot of healthy people that I was getting the message to, which is a good thing, but I needed to get the message to other people too. So I decided in October of 2009 that I was going to walk across America. And so I actually was interviewed by a reporter at the gym that I was working at, and or working out at, and I said, I think I'm going to walk across America. And as soon as I said that to him, he started riding like 100 miles an hour. So I'd stuck my foot in my mouth. There was no way I could get out of it. I just told a reporter I was going to walk across America before my wife. So I get home and I tell Louise, I said, honey, I told Fred that, I'm going to walk across America. And she says, oh, my God. She says, what? How long is that going to take? And I said, oh, I've done some figuring. I think it's going to take about 8 months. And, where are you going to sleep at night? And I said, well, I don't know yet. I haven't figured that out yet. But I'm going to visit hospitals. And as soon as I said I'm going to visit hospitals, that she got fully behind me. And so essentially that was what got me started on my first walk across America in 2010.
So does your wife go with you on these walks?
No, but she's come on all of them. She's been a part of them. On the original walk across America, she joined me in Arizona, Parker, Arizona. She joined me in Phoenix. She joined me in Texas. She joined me in Missouri. She joined me in Ohio. And then she joined me in Washington, D.C. She was working full-time, so she would take, but she would just come on holidays and come and see wherever I was at. On the second walk from San Diego to Seattle, she actually helped me get to Point Mugu, she and her sister Marie. And then once I got to Point Mugu, my best friend Daryl Prieto drove an RV that we purchased, or that we rented, and he took me the rest of the way up to Seattle, where we finished on November 23rd, 2011. And on Thanksgiving Day, my wife and Daryl and I went and fed homeless vets Thanksgiving dinner. And then my third walk was started in 2012, October 1st, in Madawaska, Maine. And we walked from Madawaska, Maine, all the way down to Miami Beach, Florida. And I got to, at Thanksgiving, I went to New York, and Don and I, Don Goodman, who was sponsoring me at the time, he and I served Thanksgiving dinner to victims of Sandy that had really destroyed a lot of New Jersey and the East Coast. So all of my walks have been wonderful adventures, and in all three walks combined, I think I've visited about 60 hospitals so far. I've spoken probably about 20 times in big convention kind of speaking arrangements, and just done a lot of visiting of hospitals and medical facilities.
Well, that in itself is fascinating. How do you, I mean, you just don't walk up to the door of the hospital and say, hey, I'm here, I'm Mycle, I'm walking across America, let me come see your patient. How do you make those arrangements? Just curious.
Well, on the first walk, actually on all the walks, I made all the arrangements with the medical personnel. I would call them up. Usually, if I thought that my plan that I laid out was going to be firm, that I was going to be at a certain location at a certain day, I would call the hospital and tell them that I was going to be at that location at that time, and arrange to be able to go into the hospital. Luckily, on the first walk, I kept pretty close to to my schedule, and all the hospitals that I planned to visit, I got there on time. On the second walk, it was a little bit more. It was a little different because I had transportation, so I knew that if I called a week in advance, I could tell them that I was going to be there, and by that time, I gained enough of a reputation to where the hospitals were actually happy to have me come and visit. And on the third walk, I had Dawn, and so that the fact that I had support made it so much easier for me to arrange hospital visits, and I arranged several hospital visits on the third walk down the East Coast.
That's awesome. And how do the patients receive you? I just have to assume they're, I don't know, are they really excited to see you?
There's almost all of the hospitals that I visited, I was able to visit patients. And each one of them found hope in the fact that someone was standing upright that had the same condition that caused them to be horizontal. And so I think that in itself was enough, to make people a little bit have a little bit more hope. But one in particular in Louisville, I went to the University of Louisville Hospital, and there was a woman that heard that I was visiting a hospital, and she came and got the nurses and told the nurses that she wanted me to come in and talk to her mother, who had just had a stroke and was a teacher, and she had her whole life ahead of her. She was probably only maybe 50 years old or 45 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her, and she was depressed. And so I walked into the hospital room, and I put my hand on her mother's hand, and the daughter put her hand on top of mine, and just as we did that, the television cameras that were behind me, that were following me during my hospital visit, took that shot, and that's probably the most indelible shot that I have of all of my visits to the hospital.
Now, I know Bob, you had, how many strokes have you had, Bob? More than one, right?
Yeah, I had two, Len. I had two strokes. The first one was a big one. The second one was not as big.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that I can't even relate to personally. I've just been so fortunate all of my life to be extraordinarily healthy. But I mean, you were told you'd never walk again. Mycle, were you told you'd never walk at any point?
After my third stroke, I was in a wheelchair for a year and a half, and I couldn't move my right side at all. The thought that I would ever be able to move my right side was grim. I'm Irish, Len, to be truthful with you, and it's like when someone says that I can't do something, it just makes me mad. And so I my way out of the it took me a year and a half, but I worked my way into then from the walker to the cane. I still have to use the cane because I have what's called Meniere's disease, which is part of the stroke complex. What happens is that my electrical circuitry shorts out, and so my whole right side will shut down. And if I don't have the cane, I fall. If I have the cane, I fall sometimes. But more often than not, the cane keeps me upright.
Now, you mentioned an RV a couple times, but you don't ever, you only use the RV to transport you to hospitals and things. If you make the walk, you always go back to the starting point where you stopped today, you go back to that starting point tomorrow, and you walk from there.
Yeah, that I think that's probably the confusing part for most people when trying to understand how I do things. But so I'll try to explain in a way that's succinct and easy to understand. I walk 3 miles at a time. I get up usually at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll have a couple of eggs and maybe a piece of bacon for the energy, for the protein, and then I'll walk for 3 miles, take a break. Take the break. I take 10-minute break. I'll have a shot block or something like that, and then I'll walk another 3 miles. The person that's supporting me will go ahead of me 3 miles, and I will walk that 3 miles to that person. Get my shot blocks, get my water, and then once I do that, he goes ahead 3 miles. I walk to him again. And so it's kind of boring for the guy that's supporting me because all he's doing is driving 3 miles at a time and then sitting for 45 minutes waiting for me to show up. But Don Goodman in particular was really good at doing that because he's a scientist, so he'd have all sorts of things that he could do during the time that I was walking. But that's essentially it. You know, I walk for 3 miles. The support vehicle is, I walk to the support vehicle, get my refreshments. He goes ahead of me. I walk to him again, and usually we do that about 8 times, all total during the day, and it ends up being about 17 to 20 miles a day.
And Bob, you started off in the beginning when Mycle did his first walk. You actually walked with him a little ways, right?
Not his first walk. I walked from San Diego to Seattle. I walked the first 13 or 4, I think we did 14 miles.
Yeah. Almost 14. We were like at 13 and 5, 7, 8.
Now, I want to say something about when you visit hospitals. When I was in a rehab hospital, I was there for about a month and didn't know if I was ever going to walk again. And one night around 8 o'clock at night, some guy walked in, and he just introduced himself as, I'm a stroke survivor. And he just said, and I'm doing things, I'm playing tennis, and it was just like very encouraging for me, for some guy I didn't even know, just stopped in for a few minutes, met me, and then he was the person that probably lifted my spirits the most. So what Mycle's doing, it just really, when you don't know, when you're just laying and you're paralyzed, you have no idea if you ever can or not, because most of the time the doctors, they're not really optimistic about your prognosis. So a person like Mycle comes in and says, hey, I had 4 strokes and I'm walking across America. That lifts people's spirits, trust me.
It's just, I mean, it's awesome. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. So Mycle, you're planning on doing this again?
Yeah, sure am.
So tell us about that.
Well, I haven't decided on a definite route yet, but I have a cursory route that would start at Surfside Beach in South Carolina. And the reason I'm thinking of starting there is on my East Coast walk, I met Sharon and Robert O'Neill in South Carolina, and they actually followed me all the way down to Miami and joined me in Miami when I finished that walk. And it was they probably drove over 1,000 miles during the whole time that I was walking down the East Coast to spend time with me. So I feel that it would be a good thing for me to start there. And I'd like to walk north along the coast one more time. I'd like to go through Washington, D.C. again. That would be the 3rd time that I've walked through Washington, D.C. Then go to Stamford, Connecticut. And from Stamford, Connecticut, go to Buffalo, New York, and then down to Erie, Pennsylvania, to Cleveland, to Toledo, to Chicago, then down to Des Moines. Some people have asked me to meet them in Kansas, so maybe I'll work out something in Kansas. Certainly go to St. Louis, where Jessica Helwig Spears and Brendan Spears and Kathy Bartenhauer are strong supporters, have been strong supporters since my first walk. So I'll definitely go to St. Louis. And from St. Louis, but I have some friends in Omaha that would like to see me. So I might go up that way, and then from Omaha to Denver, and then over the Rockies. And I haven't decided where I'm going to end yet, whether it's going to be San Francisco or Santa Monica. But it's going to be an S2S2, because I did an S2S, which was San Diego to Seattle. So this next one is going to be an S2S2, the second one, S2S. So whether I start it in Surfside, South Carolina, or start it in Savannah, Georgia, I don't know. But we're going to start with an S. We're going to finish with an S.
Okay. And you're also planning on starting and finishing with a walk in the water, right? You're going to walk out of the ocean and walk in.
That's correct. I'm planning on walking out of the ocean, out of the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm going to be plenty wet and walk into the Pacific Ocean. And the reason I'm doing that is because Wikipedia has taken out my Walking Across America adventures that were all listed in Wikipedia. And I can't quite understand, Bob and I can't quite understand why, but I'm assuming it's because when I finished my first walk across America, I didn't actually end up in the Atlantic Ocean. I ended up in Chesapeake Bay. And so maybe they're trying to be perfect on that, I don't know. On my walk down the East Coast, I started at the Canadian border and I went to the tip of the state of Miami, Florida. That sounds to me like border to border, but for some reason they won't accept it. So Bob and I are working on that, and on this next walk, they won't have any excuses because I'll walk out of the ocean, I'll walk into the ocean,
But also,
and document everything.
pardon me?
And document everything with my GoPro.
Okay. It also sounds like the route you're planning on taking is far longer than a direct route coast to coast. You're going to go up the East Coast and then back down. So was it about 4,000 miles?
It'd be pretty close to 4,000, maybe not quite, but it'll take me over the 10,000 mile mark, which is probably the most important thing for me right now, is to get past that point and visit. I'd like to visit another 50 hospitals and certainly get the word out to another 80 million people. But yeah, it's gonna be a little bit different. The first one took me 8 months, and that was from Newport Beach to Washington D.C. So I'm, without actually sitting down and doing the actual mileage of what I just said to you. What I just said to you, I think, will take about 10 months. So it'll take a couple of more months longer.
Yeah, it sounds like it. If I do 4,000 miles and just even do 20 miles a day, that's 200 days. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of time. That's just amazing. So we got a couple of questions out there. One of the questions I saw from Elaine earlier was any stories about walking in weather like storms, and Bob said that you were in tornadoes.
Yeah. When I walked into the state of Oklahoma, I was joined about a mile away by a tornado that was walking into the state of Oklahoma at the same time. I was pelted by almond-sized hail, and finally I said, well, you're not supposed to go under a tree in a thunderstorm, but I was being pelted by hail, so I finally just went under a tree. So that was my first experience with weather. During my walk up the West Coast, I really didn't have too many weather problems other than rain in Washington, which I expected. But going down the East Coast was different because I actually ran into Sandy, and we walked through Sandy in the southern part of Maine. Sandy was just fizzling out when we were walking through the southern part of Maine, and it was kind of phenomenal because the last day that we were walking during Sandy, I was fine. There was no branches hit me. Everything was fine. There were no traffic because everyone was afraid to be out there driving. So I just was walking all by myself, and I was fine. And the next day I go to walk, and half of the trees are blown over, branches all over the place. So I don't know how I survived Sandy without being pummeled. But I have to say, I've definitely had a lucky charm, whether it be God or whether it be my Irish luck. I don't know, but I've been well taken care of on all my walks.
Well, let's see. You also got shot at in one of your walks, right?
I'm sorry.
I heard a story the other day about you getting shot at in during one of your walks.
Well, they didn't shoot at me personally, but when I walked into Arizona on my walk across America, and the only way for me to get to the point where I needed to get to walk across the country, I had to go north in Arizona from Phoenix. So I got to Phoenix, and my wife got me a cart to put all my belongings, and I'm pushing the cart along the side of the road. And I get to a stop, and it looks like a good place for me to pitch my tent. So I go over and I pitch my tent, and I'm enjoying my dinner and getting ready to go to sleep. It's already turned dark, and some guy comes along and he says, "Hey, I don't think it'd be a good idea for you to park, for you to tent here. And I say, why not? And he said, well, there's a shooting range just less than a mile down the road, and it's a Friday night. They all go out there drinking their beer, and their shots are all over the place. I said, well, dude, I can't move now, man. It's dark. I can't walk in the dark. So, I've got to stay here and, pray that everything will be all right. So I pitched my tent, went to sleep, and woke up the next morning. Of course, my first stroke, I lost all of the hearing in my left ear, okay, and most of the hearing in my right ear. Well, I have a hearing aid. Well, at night, I don't sleep with the hearing aid. So I took the hearing aid out, and I set it down, and I didn't hear any gunfire. So the next morning, I wake up, and I get out of the tent, and there's bullet holes all around me, bullet holes in all the signs. You can see where they hit the rocks close to me and, ricocheted. And so I called my wife, and I said, nah, I said what you said. They were shooting at me, for crying out loud. I'm stopping. And by that time, I only had Bob had talked me into starting what we called then was a fan page, and now it's a support page. But at that time, it was called a fan page. And Bob and Louise, told me that it would probably be a good idea for me to start one of those. So I did, and 300 of Bob's friends got on my page immediately as supporters. Okay, so I have the gunfire. I tell them I'm going home. I'm saying this is it. I'm not going to be shot at. I've refused to do this if that's what's going to happen, and became a real wussy boy. And so a couple of Phoenix survivors came and talked to me, and they said, Mycle, we really need you to finish this walk. What you're doing is very important. And I really didn't realize how important it was to other people, but I knew at that point that it was more to this walk than me, and I had to remember that. And I never really, I had some danger. I faced a mountain lion, a little bit of danger there, and on my walk down the East Coast, I did walk through some pretty shaky neighborhoods, and I had one cop that said, I said, is it safe for me to walk in this area in Philadelphia? And he says, absolutely not. And I thought about that, and I said, well, these are the people that I'm walking across America for, and I can't run scared. And so I was a little nervous, but you just have to sometimes swallow that nervousness and go for it. And luckily, I've done that and survived.
That's an amazing story. Yeah. Hey, we're going to run out of time here, and actually, we're not running out of time, but some of the people who are on here might run out of time. So I know you're okay to go over a few minutes. I have a couple more questions, so I'm going to keep going. But before we lose anybody, what can we do to support you on this next walk? And sort of let me just put this out there. And I know we're trying to get you onto the Ellen show. We're working on trying to get more publicity for you, getting more support, getting more, and getting a sponsor. So what can we do? And maybe, hey, Bob, can you throw the address up in the chat for the form for the Ellen show that people can fill out while I'm talking, and then we'll at least put that up in the chat. So what can we do to help you, Mycle?
If you could just give me $1 million, that would be great.
We're working on it.
No, actually, probably the best thing to help me would be to. I'm looking for an RV. I need a sponsor. If any of your friends or guests or supporters out there work for a corporation or a company that might have a tendency of helping people do what I'm planning on doing, then please talk to them. But of course, the Ellen thing now is I'm hoping to create a wider audience and getting people, and hopefully part of that wider audience will be some corporate officers that will say, this is a guy we need to help walk across America. And so essentially, I need a sponsor, or I need someone willing to do what Don did. And Don Goodman, who sponsored my walk down the East Coast, he did everything. I didn't have to worry about anything. He had the vehicle. He would. We didn't sleep in an RV. We slept in hotels. But he fed me. He had provided shot blocks and stuff like that for me, to where all I had to worry about was speaking and visiting hospitals. So that's the prime objective. Is I only want to have to worry about walking, speaking, and visiting hospitals, and everything else I'd like to have someone else take care of for me. And I guess I got spoiled with Don, so that's what I'm hoping to find a sponsor that will be willing to help me with that. There's people, like I did Lance Armstrong, which probably isn't a really good example because of what the infamy that he has. But Lance Armstrong had a bus, and a bus for him and a bus for the supporters, and I know that I'll never get anything like that. But if I could just get a vehicle that and food and the ability to walk unhindered, then that would be great.
Cool. Okay. Fantastic. So Bob put up a link in the chat, the second one, ellentv.com, be on the show. So anyone who hasn't seen this or hasn't been part of this before that's here, what we'd like you to do, and this will take less than 5 minutes of your time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, is go to that form and fill it out and send it into the Ellen show, and tell Ellen why she needs to get this guy on her show. That's what we're trying to do, and we're hoping by getting him on the Ellen show that we will get a lot more publicity, and perhaps that will be the catalyst that will help us to find a sponsor for him.
And do it more than once too, because you can do it as many times as you want. If you do it every day, just once, and the first time you do it will take 5 minutes. The second time, and after that, all you have to do is go back to the same form, and it's already filled out. You don't even have to fill it out again. All you have to do is maybe say another reason why Ellen should have me on her show, and then click send. So from that point on, you're talking 5 minutes the first time, 30 seconds every time after that. To send that off.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's good information. I didn't know that because I've already sent the form in once. I didn't realize that we could send it in every day. So that's a good question, Chris. How does Ellen get a hold of him? Bob, what are we doing about making sure that Ellen has a way to get a hold of Mycle? Have we thought about that?
Mycle, that's a good question to you.
Well, I haven't given any of my personal information to anyone, as far as Ellen is concerned, other than in the application itself. In the application itself, I have to give my phone number, which I do, and my address, which I do. Most people, when they fill out the form, they're putting in their own address, their own information, and down at the bottom, there's a thing is what do you want to say to Ellen? That's where people are saying, please put Mycle Brandy on your show, kind of thing, and then the reasons why they think it was important for Ellen to put me on the show, and then sending that in. But essentially, the only way that they know how to get a hold of me is through the application that I sent initially. And actually, each time that I send a request, she gets that information. So. Okay.
So should we be putting that same information on our requests also?
That was something I'm not quite sure of. I wish I could. I didn't know what to tell people. To be truthful with you, I want to make this process as simple for people as possible, because if I make it too complicated, then they won't do it. If I can make it simple, then they'll do it. So I don't care how they fill the application out, so long as when they put in the reason they're contacting Ellen is to get me on their show, then that's the most important thing. And then just fill it out the way you would fill out any other application like that. They might call you and say, why do you want to get this guy on your show? I don't know. I don't know how the producers work that. I don't know if anything's going to happen from this. I think that with all the activity that we're doing, you know, something, I should at least get a call from someone saying why they can't put me on their show, or hopefully that they will put me on the show. But you know, there's no guarantees. You know, but the more we do it, the more likely someone will see it.
Okay. Now, Chris makes the comment that we need to make it simple for Ellen to find you too, because if she can't find you, then that doesn't work real well. But all right. I mean, yeah, maybe your Facebook page is the best way. We should be putting that on the forum. I don't know. You can think about that a little bit, and if you want people like us who are filling out the forum to put up your phone number or your Facebook page or whatever, we can post that.
My Facebook page is Walking Across America with Mycle, spelled M-Y-C-L-E, Brandy, B-R-A-N-D-Y. And if you go to that page, you'll see all of the posts that I'm making related to the Ellen Show. I put up 2 today. I'm going to put up another one tomorrow. And the 2 that I put up today, I put in a couple of videos of my walks across America, and my first walk across America, and one of my third across America. And so tomorrow I'll probably put, one was the University of Louisville Hospital, and tomorrow I'll probably put Barnes Jewish Christian Hospital in St. Louis. And,
Okay.
and that was a great interview too. So, you know, I'll just keep putting information and sending it to her, and hopefully one of her, you know, we have to understand that it's not Ellen that's going to decide whether or not I get on the show.
We
It's
understand.
a producer.
Yeah.
It's a producer that works for Ellen that's going to decide whether or not Ellen even sees any of the, you know, the videos that we're doing. Hopefully, we're going to you know, pull a producer's chain and get her or him moving in the right direction. So that's what I'm planning.
Okay, cool. All right. So those of you who haven't filled out on one of these forms yet, we would really appreciate your help taking the time to do this and build as much support as we can for Mycle. And so I got a couple more questions for you, Mycle, and anyone who wants to drop off needs to go because we're past our normal half hour. Please feel free. No harm, no foul. But you said something, I heard it I think yesterday, that I was just fascinated by. In some states, you actually walk on the freeways. In other states, you take backcountry roads. And so how do you plan your route to do something like this? And
The United States, each state has a pedestrian coordinator. Pedestrian coordinators are generally designed for hikers, people that want to hike along the trails. And so they tell you about trails of each state and places where you can actually hike and nature walks and so forth. But they also control whether or not, or not control, but can tell you whether or not a state will allow you to walk on an interstate highway. Most states will not allow you to walk. Like in California, I can't walk on the 5. But in Oregon, I can walk on the 5 all day long. And so in Oregon, I was walking on freeways. I love freeways. They have a huge shoulder. I have all sorts of places that I can escape to if it gets wild and crazy on a freeway. Most states, though, force me to walk on 2-lane roads that have no shoulder. And those are dangerous because those are the roads that most truckers take because they don't have to go to weight things and so forth, and there's not as much traffic. So I have to watch out for traffic all the time on those roads, and those are the majority of the roads that I have to walk on.
wow, okay. So what you end up doing is contacting the pedestrian coordinator in every state you're going to go through and getting information about that state, and then trying to plan your route accordingly.
Yep, and that's the easiest part of the walk. Once I know that I have a sponsor, and I will take the bull by the horns at that point, and get in touch with, and what I did on the last walk was I not only got in touch with all the pedestrian coordinators, but I also got in touch with all the state police, and keep the state police. I let them know that a guy's going to be walking along the highway using a cane, that there's going to be people that are going to say, oh, there's this old guy walking along the highway using a cane, he must be lost, he's homeless. So I'm just going to tell you that I'm not lost, I'm not homeless, I'm walking across America. And they usually like that, and so what they do is they usually will stop and see if I'm okay, which is really good. I get a lot of people that look out for me on my walks across America.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. So we got a couple of people here that want you to come to Chicago, but they also warned that you'll probably get shot at in Chicago.
Chicago is definitely one of my points because that's where my wife is from, and she has like 17 quadrillion people that are in her family in Chicago that I have to visit. So Chicago is definitely one of the places I'll be going.
So there you go, Rick and Larry. He'll be in Chicago at some point. Now this next walk is going to start when? When are you planning on getting started?
I'd like to start on June 1st. My chemo is going to be over March 24th. I figure I'll give myself a week after that to start getting myself, my physical self back into my mind, my mind and my attitude back into adjustment, and I'll start walking. And when I say I'll start walking April 1st, I'll probably walk. Right now, I can't even walk 100 feet. Walking 100 feet is like it kills me. I can't breathe, and the chemotherapy is really difficult. But I know that once I get off the chemo, I should probably start being able to walk again. It'll just be a slow process. April 1st, I'll walk, maybe 50, 100 feet, and April 2nd, I'll walk 150 or 200 feet, and hopefully by the middle of April, by the time that I have to pay my taxes, I'll be down to the beach, which is 4 miles away.
Okay. So 4 strokes, chemotherapy, and you're going to walk across America. Now, I just have to admire the tenaciousness. I mean, we have people I don't even know what to say right now. I guess I'm speechless. Bob, you got any final thoughts or words or questions that we ought to ask Mycle while we're still on here, or we're about to wrap up?
Just keep supporting them. Just keep abreast. Go on my Facebook wall, because I'm in this for the long haul. I've been with Mycle since 2009, and so even when he gets on the Ellen show, and after he makes his appearance, then we're going to follow him on his trip, just like we did on the other trips. So this is not just okay. We're going to throw it up here today and see what happens. And we are saying he is going to be on the Ellen show. It's a done deal. It's not a matter of we're going to try. It's an if. It's a done deal. So just keep doing it. Then you're going to be part of it. You will be part of what he is doing, and he's inspiring people around the world. Oh, I add one story. When Mycle right after his first walk, I went to England. And Mycle went to Greece to do the marathon in Marathon, Greece. So on the way back, I was coming back on a plane trip from England, and I sat next to a fellow who just came back from the marathon in Marathon, Greece. And I said, gosh, I used to have a friend of mine who did the same marathon. And I said, his name Mycle Brandy. He knew who Mycle Brandy was. I met this guy on the airplane who knew Mycle, and he knew his story. And from freaking Greece. How amazing is that? How cool is that? Small world. Small world.
Well, Michael, I absolutely admire the tenaciousness, and I'm just sitting here and I think about how many times people are people like the people we know that are in the network marketing space or the home business space, and we talk about uh, not giving up, about just being persistent and overcoming obstacles, and my God, we meet somebody like you, just absolutely amazing, just amazing. I can't think of anything good to say right now. I know what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking that it's just none of us have any excuse for not getting the things done that we need to do on a daily basis when we look at somebody like you and understand what it took for you to do what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Len.
It's an amazing story.
Well, I appreciate you having me on your show today. I really do. It gets us out to another group. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this is my card.
Well, I think if you hold it still, I'll be able to see it. Just hold still. Say something, Michael. There it goes. Say something again.
Okay, hold on. I don't know how to do this. I'm not very good at this camera thing.
White box you. Let's try that. There we go.
I'm pulling it back. There you go.
Yep. I can sort of see it.
There's my card. Bob, I don't know if you have one of these or not, but we're going to get some new ones made for the next walk. This is the one from the old one, and we're going to try to make some noise on this one. So that's the whole thing. On this walk, I really would like to make this a professional walk. I'd like to be able to videotape this, and I'd like to be able to do it in 35 millimeters so that, eventually we can maybe do a short story. And I met some people that did short story on another guy that survived from a stroke and was actually up for an Oscar. And so I'm going to talk to him and see if he can't get involved, and hopefully we're going to make this a big deal.
It should be a big deal. Just imagine the publicity for a sponsor. Whatever sponsor chooses to make Mycle his guy. Imagine pulling into town with this big RV with draped in whatever company that is, whether it's Adidas, Converse, anything, doesn't really matter. But just imagine the publicity that they're going to get for the shirt. The shirt, a little bit of investment that's going to cost for that, and then have the whole thing, like you said, have it done professionally, videotaped and stuff like that. That would be just a tremendous win-win situation for the company who chooses to sponsor you. We've been saying since 2009. But back in 2009, I didn't have a show. Len we didn't even know Len. We didn't know Jackson and Kelly's show. So now we're getting the message out to people who are in the marketing industry, who know people who do videos and things like that. So you have a lot better chance now than you did before. So it'll work. It'll get there. We will get you on there.
Sounds great.
I'll keep doing whatever I can do, and we'll just keep. You let me know if there's anything I can do, anything at all that you can think of. That if I had $1 million bucks, no problem.
Well, Len, thank you very much for having me on the show, and that in itself was a great thing. And if you'll tell your supporters that that I have a worthy cause, and help me get this worthy cause out to the rest of the world, that would be great. And we're going to try to get this American walk, and hopefully we'll make enough noise on this American walk to where I can walk the Wall of China and be an ambassador of goodwill for the American public and the American government at some place, and walk someplace where I can do that. And I can't think of a place like the Wall of China that would be better than that. But let's get across America first, and then we'll talk about the Wall of China after that.
One step at a time. All right, Mike. Hey, thanks a lot for being on here. Chris says she filled out the form. Thanks, Chris. And
thank you, Chris.
Let's keep working on making it happen. And I'd love to have you back again someday. And we'll do that. We'll have you back. We'll follow your progress, buddy.
I'm always available.
All right.
All right, Len. Thank you very much.
Bob, any final words?
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Okay.
Here we go.
There you go.
I'm shutting her down. Bye for now. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Bob.